and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavour show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at some source material that's quite a ride. It's got high drama, attempts at penance that go sideways, and surprisingly deep theological debate all mixed together.
That's right. And our job today is really to unpack how it all fits together.
Yeah.
We're focusing on two big themes: what true forgiveness looks like, and maybe more interestingly, how the text plays with perceived contradictions in Scripture to judge these characters.
Yeah, the setup is key. We've got characters dealing with the fallout from a very public spat, some really poignant historical grief, and then this Bible study group that kind of holds the key to everything.
But do they use the key? That's the question.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this.
So we kick things off with Brian and Justin, and the sources make it really clear they're starting from a place of deep embarrassment.
Right. They had this huge slanging match, and not just anywhere, but right in front of Martha's school.
And inside the church. I mean, you couldn't pick worse spots, could you? It was apparently just mortifying.
And Justin explicitly says he needs to clear his conscience.
But how does he plan to do that? Not through, apology or reflection initially.
No, straight to the wallet. They decide the best way to handle this public shame is a big competitive donation to St. Stephen's.
It's almost immediate. Justin points out the fundraising thermometer for the font isn't even halfway.
Or maybe fix the plaster above the organ, he suggests.
And then the bidding starts. It's less about the church's needs and more about them, isn't it?
Totally. Justin throws out 500 pounds.
Which Brian immediately tops. You could just feel the competitiveness ramping up.
Oh yeah, they blow past 500 pounds, jump to 2,500 pounds.
And then land on 5,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this weird auction for moral superiority. Who can pay the higher price for being awful in public?
They genuinely seem to think dropping $5,000 will somehow magically undo the spectacle.
It's like trying to buy forgiveness, literally commodifying it.
And that's where Alan, the Reverend, steps in. This is crucial. He turns down the money.
Right, 5,000 pounds. The church needs it for the font, for the plaster. Why turn it down? Why not just take the cash and make them come to the study?
Well, the sources seem to suggest the refusal itself is the point, theologically speaking.
Exactly. By saying no to the money, Alan denies them that easy out. He stops them from just buying a clear conscience off the shelf.
Instead, he insists they attend the evening's Bible study.
So the penance isn't financial, it's communal. It's about actually engaging, not just paying up.
He's forcing their hand, really, making them confront this question: what actually matters more? Is it the big check to make yourself feel better, or is it actually making things right, being reconciled?
A question they don't seem ready to answer just yet.
Okay, so before we get to that Bible study, the narrative takes this really interesting detour, a total shift in tone.
Yeah, we move from that awkward, competitive donation scene to something much quieter and deeper with Leonard and Jill.
First, there's that little aside confirming Leonard's okay, he's alive and kicking after the poisoning incident at the show. A bit of dark humor, maybe?
Maybe just clearing the decks before the heavier stuff. Because they were with them at the graveyard.
And it's very specific. The source gives us the date, the 70th anniversary of Grace Archer's death, September 22nd, 1955. Died in a fire. Born in 1930. That level of detail feels important.
It grounds the grief in real history, real loss. And Jill's reflections here are, well, they're the complete opposite of Brian and Justin's drama, aren't they?
Absolutely. She's turning 95 next week, thinking about her own long life compared to Grace's, the life Grace was meant to have, cut short at 25.
It just puts everything in perspective. Suddenly, a slanging match, however embarrassing, seems pretty trivial compared to that kind of loss.
And then they do something small, but really meaningful. A genuine act of reconciliation, maybe.
I think so. They take a flower from Phil's grave, Jill's late husband, and place it on Grace's.
It's this quiet symbol, isn't it? Showing there's room in the heart, room for remembrance for more than one person. It connects them.
And it's done with humility, not performance. A stark contrast to the earlier scene. It suggests healing comes through connection, not competition.
Which leads us, rather neatly actually, into the Bible study itself. This is where things get surprisingly intellectual.
Yeah, Susan kind of throws a wrench in the works. She's got this issue bothering her, brought up by someone called Jim.
Right, this idea that forgiveness might be an overrated virtue.
And she puts a really tough question to Alan. What if you are genuinely sorry, you've done everything you can, but the other person just refuses to forgive you? What then?
That's a real world problem, isn't it? What do you do?
Alan's response is quite measured, focusing on what you can control. He says, look, you can't force someone to forgive you,
Right.
but if you've sincerely tried, if you've repented, then God's grace is still available to you. The focus shifts back to your own state, your own efforts.
Okay, so it takes the pressure off needing the other person's response for your own peace with God, maybe.
Something like that. And this whole discussion then opens the door for Susan to bring up something else. She's been wrestling with textual contradictions in the Bible itself, specifically the Beatitudes.
Oh, this is fascinating. She points out that Luke's version of the sermon happens on a level place, not on a mountain like in Matthew.
A detail, maybe, but it leads into the bigger differences, the actual wording.
Yeah, this is the real aha moment, I think, especially when you consider the implications she raises.
Definitely. Matthew says, blessed are the poor in spirit.
While Luke just says, blessed are the poor, much more direct.
And Matthew talks about hungering and thirsting for righteousness.
Hmm.
Again, spiritual.
Whereas Luke is more visceral. Blessed are you who hunger now. Physical hunger.
And Susan doesn't shy away from what this could mean. She basically asks if Matthew's version is kind of softening the blow for the wealthy.
Letting rich people off the hook, as she puts it,
Yeah.
because being poor in spirit is maybe easier for someone with money than actually being, well, poor.
It's a sharp critique, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Raising questions about how Scripture might reflect or shape social realities.
But Alan navigates it quite skillfully. He doesn't dismiss her point.
No, he validates the observation, but suggests maybe they aren't contradictions exactly. Perhaps they're emphasizing different aspects of Christ's ministry, different audiences, different needs.
A way to hold both texts as valuable without calling one wrong. But then he pivots, bringing it right back to the immediate situation.
Yes, back to Brian and Justin and their £5,000 offer that was refused.
He directs them to a specific passage, Matthew 5:23-24, about bringing your gift to the altar.
And Brian actually reads it aloud. If you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled.
See your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift.
Wow. Suddenly Alan's refusal of the money makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Completely. It wasn't about rejecting the donation itself, but the timing, the state of their relationship.
Exactly. The scripture is crystal clear. Reconciliation comes before the offering. What Jesus cares about, Alan implies, isn't the cash. It's about being in communion with each other.
So the required penance wasn't the £5,000. It was coming to the study, engaging with this passage, and actually doing the work of reconciliation.
The money was irrelevant until that happened. Alan was literally following the instructions Brian just read out.
And this seems to land for Susan. She finds some peace in this, deciding this is the message for Jim.
Yeah.
Without forgiveness, without reconciliation, we can never truly find peace.
It feels like a moment of clarity, a potential resolution,
Oh, I sense a but coming.
a very big but.
Mm,
Because this sense of peace and understanding, it lasts about 30 seconds.
right. The final section, the relapse.
As soon as they're leaving, Brian and Justin put on a show for Leonard and Jill, pretending everything's fine now, smooths it all over.
All smiles and handshakes, probably.
But the instant they're alone, boom, the facade crumbles.
And they're right back at it. Not even a gradual slide, just an immediate return to sniping and resentment.
And notice where the conflict goes straight back to money and business.
Yeah.
The very things the scripture lesson just put secondary to relationships.
Justin immediately takes a jab at Brian's business troubles, accusing him of driving it off a cliff edge.
Ouch. And Brian hits back just as hard, doesn't he? Taunting Justin about being handed out of town, basically run out, even if he's getting a big payout, several million pounds.
So after that whole Bible study about reconciliation being paramount, they immediately use financial status and business failure as weapons against each other.
It suggests the lesson didn't penetrate at all. Or maybe they just couldn't apply it when their own egos and resentments were on the line. Was it always going to end this way for them?
It feels like it, especially with Justin's parting shot.
Oh, the final twist of the knife? He actually uses the Bible study against Brian.
Weaponizing the scripture they just discussed. He brings up the log and spec verse.
Quoting scripture Isn't there a verse about taking the log out of one's eye before removing the speck from someone else's?
And then lands the punchline, suggesting Brian has a pretty big log, his failing business, and should sort that out before criticizing Justin.
It's just, wow. Taking a teaching about humility and self-reflection and turning it into ammunition for an insult. It's the ultimate failure to grasp the point.
So what a journey. We went from this public shaming, this competitive, almost comical attempt to buy forgiveness,
Through some really deep, moving reflections on grief and history.
into a detailed look at biblical interpretation and the core meaning of reconciliation.
Only to end up right back where they started, basically, but now armed with scripture to make their insults sound more righteous.
It's quite the commentary, isn't it? The sources seem to be saying that understanding the importance of reconciliation, intellectually knowing what Matthew 5 says, is completely different from actually practicing it.
Especially when ego, money, and old resentments flare up. The spiritual insight just evaporates.
It really makes you think. We're shown how these profound texts meant to guide us towards grace and understanding.
Can so easily be twisted, weaponized even, to justify our own positions, our own anger.
Which leaves us with a final thought, perhaps. How often do we all do that, maybe in smaller ways? Use knowledge, whether it's scripture, philosophy, or just clever arguments, to avoid looking at the log in our own eye.
Do we learn things intellectually, but then use that knowledge primarily to judge or attack others, rather than for our own humility and growth? That gap between knowing and doing, that seems to be the enduring puzzle presented by these sources
So
today.
what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around.
So what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the archers. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
and- kind of. Yep.
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
Yep. That's the bull bar. That's,
This one.
yep. That's.
Haley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline. I mean,
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever